नित्यानन्देश्वर समारम्भाम् नित्यानन्देश्वरि मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. I welcome all the devotees, disciples, samajis, satsangis, Srimahans, Mahans, Kotaris, Tanedars, sitting with us all over the world through Nithyananda TV, Sadhana TV, two-way video conferencing, having Nayana Diksha. Cities sitting with us in two-way video conferencing, having Nayana Diksha, Guadalupe Rameshwaram, Ohio Prayag, Houston Kalahasti, Nithyananda University Los Angeles, Nithyananda Nagaramu Hyderabad, Oklahoma Somanatham, San Jose Madurai, Seattle Chidambaram, Brahmasugi Gurukul Batch Bangalore, Nithyananda University Paris, Kuala Lumpur Parani, Jnaneshwar Nepal, Tune Moon Hong Kong, Hyderabad Guadalupe, London Kashi, Dubai Vaidyanatham, Winston-Salem North Carolina, Oman Sivagangai, Jnaneshwar Nepal, High Point North Carolina, Toronto Kailasam, Dubai Vaidyanatham, London Kashi, Tune Moon Hong Kong, Nithyananda Nagaramu Hyderabad, Hyderabad Gupta Kashi. I welcome all of you with my love and respects. Today I wanted to expand on this one word, self-drive. Please understand. Self-drive is the source of the knowledge a human being has. Means that is Saraswathi. Knowledge is not number of books you read. Knowledge is not number of concepts you know. The amount of self-drive you have. Understand, giving a right context to the self-drive is only the job of Saraswathi, knowledge. When there is a right context, the self-drive never gets dried up. If it gets dried up, it is from the wrong context. It is the lower level pleasures. It is not self-drive. Self-drive which gets dried up is from violence or from greed. Please understand. The self-drive comes out of fear and greed, gets dried up just in few days. Giving the right context for your self-drive is the job of Saraswathi. All the knowledge, the reason for all the knowledge, reason for all the books, reason for all the knowledge transmission mechanism is to give you the right context for your self-drive. To give the right context for your self-drive. Giving the right context for your self-drive the source, purpose, reason, cause, sole cause of your knowledge. And I tell you, your self-drive is the greatest wealth you can have, which will never be lost, which will come with you for births after births after births. Self-drive is the one and only wealth you can carry from one birth to another birth. Please understand. If you want to go to US, you have to change Indian currency to US currency. If you want to come from US to India, you have to change US currency to Indian currency. The same currency will not be useful in the other country. Same way, when you leave the body, whatever you accumulated in this birth, wealth, life, relationships, properties, nothing will be useful in the next birth. But the self-drive you accumulated will be there with you in your biomemory as your asset. I tell you, self-drive is the Lakshmi. Self-drive is the ultimate wealth, ultimate asset. Anyone can accumulate, anyone can acquire. Not having self-drive is nothing but deep hatred towards you or towards others, life. I tell you, whoever does not have self-drive has a deep negative pattern about life and others. They are constantly abusing life and others, criticizing life and others, deep incompletion with others and life. Self-drive is the highest wealth anyone can accumulate. I tell you, you can lose anything. Don't lose your self-drive. Especially in the right context. Setting up the right context for your self-drive and listen. And driving yourself continuously is the greatest wealth. I wanted to remind all of you, all tiredness, all boredom is nothing but self-conflicts and self-contradictions. Self-conflicts and self-contradictions. Self-conflicts and self-contradictions. People with self-drive are rewarded by Kala Bhairava with life. People who don't have that are slammed by life, Kala. Understand, self-drive is life. From the right context, self-drive from the right context, self-drive from the right space. Self-drive is the only energy, Durga, you can have. Nothing else is energy. Not your muscle power or your thinking power. All that are not the top energy. Self-drive is the energy of life. Understand? Self-drive is Saraswathi. Self-drive is Lakshmi. Self-drive is Durga. Driving yourself constantly, I tell you, anything stops your self-drive from the right context is incompletion. Immediately complete with it and get rid of it. It's your incompletions. Immediately complete with it and get rid of it. Self-drive from the context of Advaita is what I call Advaitic activism. I request the Sangha, Nithyananda Sangha, to start using more and more the word Advaita, living Advaita, science of living Advaita. Advaita, the word Advaita should replace the word enlightenment in our Sangha, because the word enlightenment is loaded with too much of corruption. It is hijacked and loaded, polluted, corrupted with so much of meaning and so much of difficulty, so much of fear. I think for what I am offering to the world, not only the truths, even the title has to be something original. So we will make this word Advaita itself as English word, and we will give the meaning to it. Advaita looks more Sanatana Hindu than the word enlightenment. So, I request the Sangha publication and all the departments to start using more and more word living Advaita, Advaita, replacing Advaita into the word enlightenment. Because living Advaita seems to be more closer to heart of a Sanatana Hindu than the word enlightenment. Living Advaita. Living Advaita is so easy, and I tell you, having self-drive to live Advaita is Advaitic activism. That is Advaitic activism. Having self-drive to live Advaita is Advaitic activism. Advaita becoming life, lifestyle. Advaita becoming thinking style. Advaita becoming your cognition. I tell you, the only obstacle you have to live Advaita is not having self-drive. Life boils down to self-drive. When you are having intense self-drive, you reach the heights of life, possibilities of life. When your self-drive reduces, when it becomes zero, you are dead. That's all. Your self-drive to breathe, if it is taken over by impossibility, you are dead. If that is more alive than your impossibility, you are alive. That's it. Understand. Your self-drive is very, very, very important. Your self-drive is the most powerful, important. Component of life. Highest self-drive is life, youth energy. In our Sangha, I understand whether somebody is growing spiritually or not only based on their self-drive. I understand whether the spiritual process is working on them or not based on their self-drive. It is self-drive that makes you a leader. It is self-drive that makes you a successful being. It is self-drive that makes you a Advaiti. It is self-drive that makes you Living Advaitha. It is self-drive that makes you a Jivan Mukta. Self-drive from the right context makes you a Jivan Mukta. Anywhere you read the concepts against the self-drive from the right context, be very clear, it is not spiritual teaching. Self-drive from the wrong context can be criticized, that needs to be completed. Self-drive from fear and greed should be completed. But self-drive itself should not be given up. It's very unfortunate. The Vedantic books have spoken so ill of self-drive from fear and self-drive from greed, self-drive from the wrong context. Finally, you gave up self-drive itself, which is completely wrong. Which is completely wrong. If I visualize Mahadeva, I'll visualize him as the embodiment of self-drive. This is the best way I wanted to be known by the world. This is the best Anyakara I wanted to have. This is the way I wanted people to see me, experience me. Embodiment of self-drive. Embodiment of self-drive. Understand, self-drive from the right context. Self-drive from the right context. Our Sangha is nothing but I am giving an opportunity for everyone to set their self-drive in the right context and explode. Set their self-drive in the right context and explode. Whether it is Gurukul or the schools, colleges we are running, or the Nithyananda Dhyanapeetham itself, Nithyananda Sangha itself should be the symbol of self-drive from the right context. The Bhagavad Janda of Nithyananda Sangha flies on self-drive from the right context. The Kavi flag of Nithyananda Sangha flies high from the right context of self-drive. Self-drive listen, self-drive from the right context. Self-drive from the right context. Self-drive from the Advaitic space to live and radiate Advaita. Self-drive from the Advaitic space to live and enrich yourself and others. Is the goal of life. That is the purpose of life. That is the reason for life. That is why life exists. Person with self-drive is alive. Person who loses the self-drive is dead. Person with self-drive lives the highest space. Person who loses the self-drive destroys himself. The verse in Bhagavad Gita, the words of Sri Krishna, Uttared Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasadayet. This is the exact interpretation I will give. Raising your self-drive by yourself by setting the right context. You will be a great friend for yourself. If you can't raise your self-drive by yourself by setting the right context, you are the greatest enemy for you. It is the self-drive that makes you king or beggar. It is the self-drive that gives you self-respect or not. It's a self-drive that gives you the ability to exist. That is a self-drive that gives you the strength to live. Self-drive is the love for life. Self-drive is the devotion for life. Self-drive is commitment towards life. Self-drive is the scale to measure your authenticity, integrity, responsibility and enriching. Last 3 days Nitya Dhyana Yoga, I have defined integrity, authenticity, responsibility clearly. Aligning your inner image and outer image is integrity. If inner image and outer image are aligned, you will never tell a lie. That is integrity. Building your other's image. is responsibility. How you want others to perceive you, working for it, building it is responsibility. How you want to perceive others, building that kind of a personalities, incidents, situations around you is enriching. Aligning all the four identities to the highest possibility is authenticity. Listen. Whether it is integrity or authenticity or responsibility or enriching, it all boils down to just self-drive. When you have the self-drive from the right context, you are young and you don't have death. Please understand, even after death you will exist in that eternal silence and do what you need to do. Do what you decided to do. I'm very clear. Even if I leave this body, I'll never disappear. I will be available in all my deities. Through all my deities, I'll continue to be available and do what I have to do and do what I decided to do. Whether I have this body or the body of my deities, I won't disappear. As long as I have this body, I'll work through this body. When I leave this body, I'll work through all my deities. Even now I work through all my deities, that is different. Even after I leave my body, I'll just continue to exist through all my deities and do what I need to do, because my self-drive cannot be reduced even by death. Whose self-drive cannot be reduced by anything is Amara, eternally alive. If your self-drive cannot be taken away by anything, disease or death, even death cannot touch your self-drive, means you are Amara. You will exist forever. If you have set the right context for your self-drive, you will be in the Kailasa, Nithyananda Loka. If you have set the fear as the context for your self-drive, you will be in Batala, like Rakshasas, demons. If you have set greed as the context for your self-drive, you will be in Indra Loka, singing and dancing and enjoying. If you have set Advaita as the context for your self-drive, you will be in Nithyananda Loka, Kailasa. People with the highest self-drive do not die. Mara never happens to them. Marana never happens to them. They become Amara. Self-drive is the solution for the problems as simple as boredom to, that is the strategy plan for as highest as crossing the death. Whether you want to cross your simple day-to-day boredom, tiredness, or you want to cross death itself, self-drive is the solution. Self-drive is the solution. Self-drive from the right context is the solution. Self-drive from the right context is the solution. Self-drive from the right context is the solution. Now I tell you all, self-drive from the right context is Living Advaitha. Essence of today's satsang. Self-drive from the right context. Let you all radiate with integrity, authenticity, responsibility, enriching and causing eternal bliss. Nithyananda. Thank you.
Request to all the Kalpataru participants, please come forward.
I bless you all. Let you all radiate with integrity, authenticity, responsibility, enriching and causing eternal bliss. Nithyananda. Thank you.
Nithyananda Dhyanapītam, Nithyananda Nagar, off Mysore Road, Bidadi, Bengaluru. Phone 08027279999. www.nithyananda.org. www.youtube.com/Life Bliss Foundation.